it sounds to me like you had a lot of examples in your life, in your family, of people who took on hard things and cared about what was happening around them. And so Lisette Nieves was on our podcast and she's incredible. And she said something to me once. She's like, when you live in a city like New York, you don't get to opt out. And I was like, oh, wow, it's just right here. She's like, when
We're
you're this
there.
close to humans, you don't get to opt out. And that
Yeah.
came to my mind as you were talking about that. And I'm curious how, as a young person, the engagement in the social, sort of the social justice things that grabbed your heart and have been hanging on to them for so long. How do you, at 16, decide that's what you're going to walk into when you start getting into your career?
I think I just had the example of, like, for instance, my mother studied political science and was like always doing something, some project in the community on our block, or was very entrepreneurial. Like in the summers would just be like, oh, I want to sell Girl Scout cookies. And she'd be like, you don't have to sell Girl Scout cookies. You can make your own cookies. You can sell your own cookies. She started like a summer camp that was called Kid Power. And like the kids on the block came over to our porch and we all decided on like different businesses we were going to try to do that summer. And I just kind of like, my mom raised me in such a way that was just kind of like, you just decide to do something and then you do it and then you make a difference. Like it's a choice. That's just kind of, it was always sort of like offered as a thing.
Yeah.
But at 16, I had a friend like in the neighborhood that was on his way over to visit. I grew up in the south side of Chicago. I had a friend who was on his way over to visit and he got shot and killed on the way to my house. And it was a personal trauma. But my mom at that time was in trying to help me move through the grief of it. Also her own grief, I guess, you know, as a parent watching her teenager experience that. She was just like, we're going to do something. We're going to organize around gun violence. And she ended up running for alderman in Chicago, like on a platform of like community safety and gun violence prevention. And we did this memorial project where we tied green ribbons around trees. That was his favorite color. And we put these little signs with his name and its story. And that was kind of like my first organizing project, I guess. And then it kind of just kept going from there. In school, they would be like, oh, we have this public service project where you can go volunteer with other students and do mentoring or tutoring, and kind of just started just picking up stuff after that, like doing, I guess you could call it service work, public service work. But yeah.